She knows a lot of the family history also because uh, they lived next door to my grandmother and grandfather,
Oh, that's amazing.
and they also she also traveled with my dad and other family members when they went out of town to visit other family in different states.
Okay.
So she's got a whole lot of knowledge and history, and she's still pretty tight in the head,
Yeah. Okay.
and the mind is pretty sound about the family history, even on your side, even the Zachary side, because she knows all the Zacharys from Scottsdale. So like your uncle, I mean your grandfather, Sam Zachary. She knows a lot about their family because they all came to Scottsdale when they were young, and that's how sort of all the families grew and blossomed out of Scottsdale. Because Scottsdale was you know where Scottsdale is, right? And you know where Avondale is, right? Scottsdale and Avondale, Avondale, of course, was basically for the whites. Scottsdale was a community for the blacks.
Okay.
In segregation, most of the housekeepers, maids, mill and factory workers all lived in Scottsdale.
Okay.
Because they had two big mills there, textile mills.
Okay.
They had one in Avondale and they had one in Scottsdale. And a lot of the people that lived in Scottsdale either worked for one of the mills, they were a maid or a butler, or they worked for like the county, one of the counties, DeKalb County, Fulton County.
Okay.
Or a hospital system. Those were pretty much it.
Okay. Now, Unc told me that we had a street. Well, Uncle John had a street named after him or something. John Reid, or there was a street. So like, how do you know how that came about, or like, does that have something to do with the what's the word I'm looking? I don't even know what the word I'm looking for. But do you know how that came about?
Yeah. Now, Uncle John was your great grandfather's brother. He was his oldest brother.
Okay.
And they were, as far as what I was told, they were one of the first families to settle in Scottsdale in that area.
Okay.
So back when it was all dirt roads and trails, they moved and settled in Scottsdale. He brought your great grandfather, which was his younger brother, with him here to Georgia. So
from Carolina.
Yeah. So where they settled at in Scottsdale is where they named one of the streets after them, because of course they were one of the first, I guess, big families to settle there. And when they started to cut and turn the trails in the roads, that was one of the first ones they named. Now, the story also goes that there was, since it was still some, of course, a whole lot of racism way back then, that the white people wouldn't allow them to name the street after his name. His name is, our name is spelled R-E-I-D. So, them just to be spiteful, they spelled it R-E-E-D.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want to acknowledge him. Yeah, but it's a lot of interesting stories like that. And man, Uncle John's son his name was Wilson Reid. Oh man, I wish I had or could have absorbed in, if we had videos back then, man. That guy knew, between him and my father, they knew everything about the family.
Really?
Everything.
See, that's what Uncle Melvin was saying too. He said that your dad would know a lot, and yeah, that's crazy.
Everything about it, and even your great grandfather was once upon a time lived on a reservation because his some of his, I think his father or his mother was mostly Indian. I think it was his mother, Josiah, that was mostly Indian.
Wait for grandma?
No, for your grandfather. Her name was
Okay.
Her name was Josiah.
And she was mostly Indian.
Yeah.
Do you know where? Like what tribe or?
It was, I get it mixed up with my mom's side because my mom's got a lot of Cherokee on her side. I think it was Blackfoot maybe.
Okay. Cause like that's something that, cause Uncle Tim said that y'all used to go make baskets somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's wild.
That's okay. So from Grandma Corinne, she's Geechee? Or
No, she's got Indian in her family, but your grandfather, your great grandfather, Herbert Reid, yeah, he's a Geechee.
He's a Geechee.
Yeah.
And his mom was an Indian.
Right.
She has Indian in hers as well.
Yep. And like I said, that's her right there. That's her on the two pictures. I know that's not real good pictures of
No,
her, but
these are perfect pictures.
whenever that was, that's how the old pictures used to be. They have a date stamped on them to tell you when they were, but I don't think you can see that one too good.
This is amazing information, honestly. Like, I'm just gonna let you talk whatever you have to share. Honestly.
Yeah. So
My mind is blown.
yeah, it gets pretty deep, man, because if we can, what I would love to do is to go back and do a little more research on these two, just to see how many brothers and sisters they both had, and sort of where their offspring all migrated to, because it's got to be a pretty big family. I mean, between your my dad's brothers and sisters, there were 9 of them.
Yeah.
So, that's a lot.
How big where they came from. Yeah.
So if you got, you got the other side of the family and they got 7, 8, 9 kids each, that's a lot more people that, we're related to and we don't even know about.
So like our family name would consist of Fowler, Spurley, and Morton, besides Reid exactly.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So yeah, we got a lot of history to trace back from. It was like.
Yeah, we do, man. It's like I mentioned, it's a lot of people, and I know now. I think, just my opinion, if we could get it up to a certain point, like all of our, well, I'd say up to my parents. If we were going back, and we really need to do a family tree going all the way back, I think going forward it's a lot easier for us, because if we can get up to my parents' generation, or maybe even my generation, but I would say my parents' generation, just to make it easy. So that's all your great uncles and great aunts, and start documenting that and going backwards. Then I think maybe we could connect things. Start connecting and pulling, all the branches together on the tree, because going forward it's a little easier for us to document,
right? Because
we sort of know everybody, and it's just a matter of recording.
Right. Got technology on our side.
Absolutely. So I'd like to go back. I'd like to go back if I could, as far back as we can, even if it's 6, 7 generations.
I mean, for me, this is the 4th generation, right? Because that's so that's 4 generations for me, going tracing back already.
Yeah. you know, just with seeing a lot of this information
Mm-hmm.
and you going back forward that quick. Now, I would love to go back again as far as we could, but even if we could go forward more and sort of connect some of the branches that are in other states and other areas,
Mm-hmm.
because I know there's a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember traveling, you know, when I was younger to some of the states and even visiting some of the relatives. But, you know, again, over the years, we just sort of lost the ability to stay in touch.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, not intentionally, but, you know, things happen and families just grow. And
Right.
we didn't do a very good job of staying connected. So that's the exciting part about it, man. I would love to just know completely where we come from.
Me too. That's really.
Because I know we got of course we have African blood in us, but there's also we got island blood in us, the Caribbean. We got some English blood in the family, like England, Scotland. Strange enough,
That popped up in the on the ancestry thing.
It
So
did?
That's what I was trying to
yeah,
trying to see like where all these
it's true, man.
nationalities coming from. You know what I mean?
It's true. England, Scotland, and even in here, you'll see where we had identified some family over in Germany. So that's in this document.
Okay.
But it's just one big, giant melting pot
Yeah.
of people from everywhere,
Yeah.
all colors, shapes, and sizes, man. I mean, just a beautiful family.
I just like, and I also feel like a strong spiritual sense from my family as well. And I don't. I just like I didn't know if it came from the Geechee or the Native American, like whatever. Like I don't know.
It did, man.
This is amazing stuff.
We were, I'll say, when things were a lot more challenging from a racial standpoint, we were a whole lot closer.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a lot of the stuff, the advantages that we have today with, you know, technology and, you know, the ability to communicate easy. So they were really forced to have to be a lot closer.
Right.
So everybody knew each other, families were always around each other. And
Yeah,
you could
sense
see
of
all your
community.
cousins, your aunts, your uncles, you know, your grandparents, and just to see the love that was shared and the makeup of all the different people, man.
Right.
Because it's incredible. I mean, we got from the lightest to the light to the darkest of the dark.
Yes, sir.
And it's crazy because my dad was dark, but I looked like my dad. And you know, I remember times when he was an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Everybody worked for him. Even your dad worked for him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, everybody. That's your Uncle Rome, your Uncle Tim. That's how they all sort of got started doing what they do, because they all used to work for him. We all worked for him.
Where was he?
He was a jack of all, man.
Okay.
But he was Herbert Reid Jr.
Okay.
So he was the oldest child of Herbert and Corrine. That was my dad. And, you know, he did a lot of landscaping, cleaning, construction, you know, and that was outside of his regular job. In his regular job, he worked in the steel mill.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he did that and then got off and did a whole nother job.
Was that the mill that was built in Scottsdale, or just a random mill or something?
It was related to the one in Scottsdale.
Okay.
Now, they used to have one in Avondale that did steel, and they made like steel forms for concrete.
Okay.
Yeah, he worked for them. He worked for them like 30 years, man.
Wow.
Yep. So all of us, he was the first entrepreneur I knew, but everybody in the family basically
Came
worked
from
for him.
under him. Yeah. Okay.
Including your Uncle Melvin, your Uncle Doc, your Uncle Michael, Uncle George, everybody. He knew everybody, man. He had relationships all over. He knew bankers, lawyers, doctors, because in some way, shape, or form, he would end up doing some work for them. Whether he worked on their house, whether he, did their lawns. I think my dad was probably one of the first African Americans in the city to have his own lawn service. So from that, you get to where you are today. Because he used to go in Avondale, downtown Decatur, Emory, Fernbank. We had yards all over the place, man. And this was like 60s. I think he started in the 60s. Of course, I didn't get involved until like the 70s. Right. Because I was on the back end of the line. But as early as I can remember, I grew up doing that. He bought me a lawnmower when I was 5 years old.
Wow. Okay. So he made sure you knew the family business.
Yeah, because ultimately what he wanted to do is to teach us a skill set that we would always have something to fall back on.
Right.
And that it gave you the knowledge of how to do something as a black man.
Right.
So you didn't have to worry about not going out there and saying, hey, I don't have a way to make money.
Right.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. You gotta cut grass.
You can cut grass, you can paint, you can clean gutters, you can mop and wax floors. I mean, he had contracts with restaurants. We used to go in and clean them up. I mean, it's just a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh, okay. Uncle's that man.
Yeah, he was the man. He was the man. I mean, that's some big shoes to fill, man.
I bet. Man.
But between he and your great grandmother, Dorothy, and their sister, your Aunt Marie, those were like the three matriarchs of this side of the family that everybody looked up to, went to for advice, depended on, for counsel, just for everything, man. They held the family together for years and allowed us to continue to have family reunions and just to get to fellowship together with them was, definitely a blessing. That's why I'm excited about someone as young as you being this interested in it.
Yeah, I'm loving this.
Because it's, oh man, you don't realize how valuable it's going to be to you when you even get older.
Right.
And you have kids that you can tell about.
Right. This is dope.
Yeah.
Uncle said, so like the three matriarchs you just named, they Uncle said they used to march or something. Did they march for education or something like that? Like, you know anything about that?
Yeah. As part of the civil rights movement, they were all involved in it because they didn't really have a choice.
Yeah.
And they wanted equality and change. So with my dad being the oldest and your great grandmother being right behind him, they were the two oldest in the family. So with them being right behind each other, they sort of, being in the South, born when they were born. My dad was born in 1929. So, and your grandmother, I think she was born in, your great grandmother, I think she was born in 1931.
And she's my grandma. Dorothy?
Yeah. I keep saying your great grandma, but yeah, I think she was born in 1931.
Okay.
So you can just imagine how things were back then. So with those two being, the oldest brothers and sisters, they took the initiative to go out and try to, fight for equality for their younger brothers and sisters to have a better opportunity to do things than they did. So that was sort of how they ended up getting involved in a lot of the protests, the marches, the sit-ins, and then they brought some of their brothers and sisters along in that. Now, your Aunt Marie, she was sort of instrumental in that too, because she was like the first one in the family to go through that process and then go to college. She ended up going to Morris Brown College.
So she was the only one that went to college?
My dad went for a year, and then he stopped, of course. He played a little football, but wanted to go on with the family life.
Right.
Yeah. So, and we had a couple of other. Your Aunt Jean, I think she went to college for a minute, and she also. It's crazy, man, because she also went to the Marine Corps.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Back in the day?
Yeah. So she was, that's why I say they were a lot of trendsetters. I think she went in 1972, 72, 71.
Okay.
Now it may have even been before that.
But still, that was a time color folks weren't good, especially, and then she's a woman on top of that. So
yeah, so she was a trendsetter and a barrier breaker.
Yeah.
So way back then, you had individuals and people in our family that were looking to break outside of the norm and express themselves and be involved. Yeah, be involved in things that traditionally we weren't allowed to do.
Yeah.
And it's all because they had some good instruction from their older brother and sister, and also from their two parents and what their two parents came from. So, it gets back to just realizing how amazing this whole family is, this whole family dynamic is.
Yeah.
And it just, it's sort of like an amoeba. It goes all over the place.
Yeah.
But we got,
Stretch far wide.
yeah, it goes everywhere, man. I mean, there's stories for days and days and days.